I'm just going to kind of explain my transition during this pandemic. You know, those of you that know my story, probably 15 years ago, you know, it was a pretty dark time of my life, but I bounced back, made some very specific goals, was able to get my family rallied, bought a house, renovated it, and 5 years ago, accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish. But once I did that, what's interesting about what everybody's saying now, my patterns became habits. And that tends to lend towards complacency in what I did. Instead of taking the time to stop and celebrate accomplishing a feat, and then redesigning the way I approached things so I could spend more time doing the things that I really should have been doing, just didn't happen. So there's a way that seems right to the man, but in its end, it's the way to death. I read that when the pandemic happened because I flew back to my house in Carmel. Family was in other areas. I was quarantined for a couple of weeks. So, and I figured everything was done. So this spoke to me that, and Jennifer talked about it a bit too. You know, there's two dates on a tombstone. It's the beginning and the end. And how did you put it, Jennifer? If you have a timeline and you start tearing away at all your preparations, you have about this much left to really enjoy what you need to be doing. And that spoke to me a lot. I appreciate that. And that's what spoke to me about this. If you could advance the slide, please, Ben. So we talk about intention and direction. So direction determines the destination. So the question I had to ask myself is this. It's from Jen Rome. Are all of the disciplines that I'm currently engaged in taking, is it taking me where I want to go? Man, when I started contemplating on that, I had to be honest with myself. I had no idea where I wanted to go because I simply was too busy in my complacent habit of jumping on a plane 46 weeks out of the year. As long as my schedule was full, I'd come home on a Friday night, say hi to the family, say bye on a Sunday or a Monday, and repeat the process. And it really didn't line up with what I wanted, but that was my fault because I never had enough confidence to take the time to think and plan. And so I had to face some demons during that time too, to make that happen. If you could advance, please, Ben. So, and this is what I have a real challenge with. Begin with the end in mind. Well, what is the end? Is it me for the rest of my life until I retire or die, going to be on airplanes 46 weeks out of the year? I didn't want that. But then I started, you know, I came across this, seven habits. All things are created twice. There's a mental first creation and then the actual doing. My challenge is I'm a doer. I had 32 trees that were anywhere from 80 to 120 feet tall that were dead on my property. Instead of hiring somebody to do it, I just grabbed a chainsaw and an articulating jib and went out and cut them all down. That's why I walk a little bit crooked right now. I didn't want to take the time to plan it out. And this has been real hard for me, very difficult for me, but I gave it a shot. The mental of a first creation, and then the physical or second creation to make all things, to make it work. Go ahead and advance, please, Ben. So people often say that motivation doesn't last. Well, neither does bathing. That's why we recommend it daily. So it's absolute truth. Mindset and getting outside of the box and making yourself uncomfortable, and in my situation, vulnerable, because for the longest time, I wanted to do it all myself. But once I determined the next step for me, my family, and everybody else, I suddenly realized that I couldn't do it by myself. And that was terrifying. I had to rely on other people. And at that point in time where I was, I could count on one hand how many people within the business that I consider friends had never taken advantage of the situation from me. So people often say that motivation doesn't last. So I had to get my mind right, my attitude, my behaviors, my actions, results. How you think determines how you feel determines how you act, and those actions determine outcome. And that was a hard lesson to learn. Let's go one more, Ben. So then this, the whole of life is but a moment of time. It's our duty, therefore, to use it and not to misuse it. This for me, put everything into perspective. I mean, if I'm going to get a little philosophical, I will. Every grain of sand that goes through that hourglass is a moment in time that we'll never get back. A moment in time. It's our duty to use it and not misuse it. And that was a difficult shift for me to clearly understand. So I started contemplating on the moment in time when the pandemic happened and what I thought I was supposed to be doing was gone. And then I started thinking, well, how could I reinvent myself? So we had, the virtual thing was going on. We had a few virtual sales classes that we did, but it just wasn't it. It just didn't work. But then with collaboration with Jennifer and Matthew and the group on this team that I have a lot of love and respect for, I have to tell you, they helped me piece a few things together. And it's made a difference. So I can tell you absolutely right now that I have a clear vision of what the next step is, because I was forced to take the time to think, what do I want my life to look like 10 years from now? How could I accomplish that, and how do I make that happen? And the planning phase with the collaboration was phenomenal. And I'm not here to pitch this at all. The result is, offering a service that online we can convert leads, connect them with virtual comfort advisors. Right now I have a staff of 9, soon to be 10, and sell online and deliver signed contracts in a contractor's inbox. I didn't put myself on the front line this time. I've got structure to it. I had a couple of managers that are very good at selling. They recruited some talented salespeople. And my role is to make sure that the intention, the mission, the why, the brand, the purpose is all in alignment while they're focusing on the direction. So intention without direction is ridiculous. I mean, you jump in a car, you're going to drive to St. Louis. Well, drove through St. Louis, you wind up at the ocean. What good is it, right? You're lost direction. So there has to be a balance between those two things. And for me, the lesson of making the time to reflect, making the time to make sure everything is on track and everything is going the way it should be is so important. And I'm embarrassed that I went 5 years in a complacent and habitual pattern that really didn't accomplish a whole lot. But super excited this time that with the help of this team, put me on a different path that I believe is going to help a lot of people lift themselves out of, extraordinary situations.